Yo, what's up? Wonderful Earthlings. Thank you very much for clicking this video. You are love resource. And you see, with love, even the broken hearts can be healed, and even the burdens at heart can be eased. And even those cases that may seem wasted or crooked in the society, with the spark of love can be cool and full of love one again. With your help, wonderful soul, of watching this video till the end, you can help us spread love across the whole world because here we believe in unconditional love. So, buckle up, good lads, and grab some snacks as we react together through different types of videos showing the importance of peace, unity, and forgiveness. Straight out of Africa with good vibes, lots of good vibes. Tell us where you're watching from, hit the like button, and watch till the end. Kindly hit the like button. Good vibes, man. Let's dive in. Yo. Huh. Oh my
Are you
god.
ready to find out what
What
the
is
Great
this?
Reset's all about? Chapter 5 of the book The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Walls. The Human Reset. Destination, the Ancestral Republic. The team was now in voyage to the Ancestral Republic, following the directions of the captain from the Ancestral Republic Navy ship that stopped them. The night was very clear, and the sailors could see from a distance. The group was stupefied by the beauty of this giant and silent city. They describe it as like looking at an electrical city from the book of Thomas Brown. They were eager to arrive and not remain on the boat anymore because they were very uneasy about what the other captain had told them about there being a war zone, that they might not be safe. So the priority right now was to get to land, to get to the Ancestral Republic. So they're at the port of what looks like a large and modern city. And not even a couple of minutes go by that more agents dressed just like the other guys on the ship arrived to welcome them. And they were greeted. The head agent said, "Welcome to the Ancestral Republic. We are very happy of your visit to our lands. It's almost unthinkable. We were advised of your arrival, but we really didn't believe it until we saw you guys." Captain Butler thanks them on behalf of the entire boat and then introduces William Morris as the owner of the ship. William Morris said that it was an honor to be there. The entire team was still dumbfounded because they couldn't believe that beyond the Antarctic ice wall, that there were other cultures, that there were other lands. It was just impossible to set in. And they had so many questions. But the agent told them that right now it was urgent for them to go meet the president. Now Morris is describing a vehicle that they took to go meet this president that they had never seen before. The system of illumination was these electrical lanterns. There were no noises of horses or carriages. It was a very silent city, whimsical to say the least. They are describing the clothes that the other people are wearing as very colorful and totally different. And they also had these luminous devices that they were holding that would show images and voices. I think they're describing cell phones or little portable computers. And remember, this is after the Revolutionary War, so these guys had never seen this technology. It would be like someone from the past visiting us today. They finally arrived to this immense building, and each room was connected to the other. William Morris decides to touch the wall while he's going from room to room, and he said that it was cold like marble. Then there are some stairs, he becomes dizzy. Then they finally arrive to a room with all of these different chairs and seatings, and the agent tells him to wait there. And Morris says that he could have waited there forever because the comfort of these seats was something that he had never experienced before. After a while, a man with a mustache comes out and addresses Morris and says, "Are you William Morris from the United States of America?" And Morris says, "Yes." And the man says, "My name is Fael. I am so sorry you have arrived at these times that we are going through now. If you had come at any other time, the situation would have been so much better and different. Morris said that he had so many questions, but he was living in a state of confusion at the moment, and he couldn't get a single word out. And File continues his story. And he tries to explain how there is this war that before was far away, but now it also involves them here at the Ancestral Republic. And although Morris didn't really quite understand the situation, he kept on nodding and saying yes, yes, as if he did, because he wanted to hear more of the story. And maybe after that, he could understand what was going on. File, with all seriousness, looks at Morris and says, I don't think you fully understand. We are part of what you would call the old humanity. I mean, we were not part of the last reboot. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what the reboot process is? There are many humanities in different times, as well as there are many resets and many reboots. And this happens every certain amount of time that has already been stipulated. And if it's done before that date, it's for external reasons. And he says, at least for now, this is how it has always happened. Then he reveals some shocking information explaining how natural disasters are also part of this manipulation to reboot humanity. More on the human reset in the next episode. If you'd like to catch up on this story, this video is in a playlist with all the episodes starting from chapter 1.
That's very creepy, man. Evidence for ancient aliens. Look at this. Oh my god. Look at that scar. Look at these drawings and these stones carved like this. Why do you think people from the past got that idea? You see? Huh. That's interesting, man. Those animals were just playing, good vibes playing. And in some places, some guy here had a wonderful car, a good vibes. This is a very interesting type of car. You see, it's very beautiful. And some wonderful good vibes human here was taking photos of them, and that's just incredible. Oh my god! They were there of the car. Ah, man, that's incredible. That's unbelievable. That's good vibes, man. Look at this, some radio frequency in some place. Oh, how does this work now? Looks like
Gorilla strength
magnetic
is
or what?
estimated to
How
be
does it
about 10
work?
times their body weight. The strongest human grip strength ever measured was 340. The average gorilla's grip strength is somewhere around 500 piece, with the highest measured being 700 plus pounds. Gorillas do get aggressive. However, they do so only when they feel threatened or when a silverback from another group attempts to steal one of the females. Gorillas show their signs of anger by throwing vegetation, making loud hoots, thumping the ground, beating their chests loud.
Chapter 3 of the book, The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Walls. William Morris and his team are now beyond the ice wall. They found the
What do you
passage
think
they
about
went
gorillas,
through.
man? Do you
They
think
are
those
in
are
this
ancestors
new,
that
mysterious, uncharted, open ocean, and this gigantic red ship is heading towards them, a size that we have never seen in our lands. The waters were still very deep, and they describe how there was this weird climate of both hot and cold at the same time. Once the gigantic ship reached them, they saw that it had a blue flag with a white circle in the middle, a flag that they had never seen before. Screeching sound filled the air. They could hardly stand it. They could describe it as unbearable. It was some kind of a megahorn. Then a voice with a perfect English accent said, "Dear visitors from the walled lands, some of our men will come down and approach your boat. Please remain calm." William Morris was very frightened at this message. There was no way for them to escape. Their ship was gigantic. It looked like something out of a fictional tale, he describes it. But Butler reassured him that based on his knowledge that everything was going to be okay. He knew that something like this could happen. And he told everyone to stay calm and welcome this visitor in a very kind way. These men were now making their way to Morris's ship. They had white suits. They had several emblems on them that stood out. At this point, they helped these men up, and everyone was shaking hands nicely. One of them introduced themselves as the captain and wanted to know what they were doing in these seas and why they were navigating there. Butler speaks up and explains how they're navigating around the Antarctic Circle, and that a current brought them there to this open sea of theirs. He called it the other side, and that they were there to investigate these other areas. William Morris noticed that Butler and these other men were getting along. Their captain turned to the other two men with him, and he looked amazed. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. People from the other side of the ice wall had just penetrated it and gone beyond. They all looked at each other and commented between them that it had been a very, very long time since anything like this had happened. And their captain says to Butler that they were very, very sorry that their visit seemed to be unwelcomed. In fact, they said, "You are very welcome. It has just been such a long time since we've seen anyone from the inner ice wall," saying that crossing the ice wall is something almost impossible to do. And then he goes on to say that it doesn't matter anymore, and gives them a map with the directions on how to get to the safe lands. And this last sentence didn't sit well with Morris or Butler, and they're like, "What do you mean safe lands? Are we not safe?" And their captain tells the team, "Well, the lands where you come from are very unsafe." It was a very unique moment to be able to understand the situation. William Morris, as the owner of the boat, decides to speak up, and he asks, "Excuse me, where do you come from?" He had millions more questions that he wanted to ask, and their captain says, "We are from the Ancestral Republic." He says, "Don't worry, sir. I understand that you are going to have many questions now." And he promises that they will get all the answers they want when they reach these lands that they just indicated to him on this map with these directions. And he tells them that they were going to inform them of their arrival so that there won't be any surprises. The team, the men on the ship, withdrew, and they all started searching and researching these maps to figure everything out. And they had more questions than answers at this point. They were now heading towards the Ancestral Republic. Next part coming up.
Einstein's theory of relativity has been made out to be something that's much more difficult to understand than it actually is. It's also not a theory. It's something that is necessary for the universe as we know it to exist. Basically, it describes that all physical properties are only in existence through the relationship objects have with other objects. I'll give the example, very simple one, that if there are only two objects in the universe and they're getting farther apart or closer together, you never know which one is moving. So try to imagine that in your head. Only two different objects, like something very basic, like two spheres, and they give the appearance of movement, but the movement can only occur with by the relationship of the objects to each other. If there's only one object in the universe, in a theoretically endless void of space, then it cannot move, because movement can only really occur by its relative existence to position of other objects in space. And it's the same with everything, really. You only really know where you are by the position of other things. And even beyond things like space and position and movement, time works in a very similar way, and I think this is where the concept of space-time comes from. You only know time by the frequency of previous events in your life. You only know how long a day is because the Earth rotates around the sun, but a day is just, it's not like a length of time that would exist if the Earth did not orbit the sun and at the exact speed that it does. So I like to think of time as something that separates events and makes frequency possible. Frequency is just like an oscillation up and down, 1 and 0, on and off. So you only know the day by the night, you only know the positive by the negative, and you only know your own existence by the existence of other things and other people. So that's the basic principle behind relativity, and it's described very eloquently by Einstein's example of saying that the speed of light is constant for all non-accelerating observers. To make this simple, there's often the question of if you're going 99% the speed of light, then what happens, if you shine a light in front of you? And the thing is, if you're not accelerating, if you're at a consistent speed that is considered, however many meters per second is very close to the speed of light, then you're essentially a stationary object. It's very hard to understand, but go back to my example of if you're the only object of the universe, you can't move. So light, if you shine a light in front of you and there's nothing to reflect it, then you don't see any light. So don't think that it's this esoteric, hard to understand thing when you might hear someone propose the idea that there's no such thing as motion. There really isn't. There's only faster than and slower than. There's no motion that exists by itself. So when you look at, say there's an object in the sky and it's moving very, very quickly, and you suppose it's moving, 1% the speed of light. The speed isn't really important. But with that particular object, it looks to you like it's moving very quickly, but from its non-accelerating, it's not getting any faster or slower reference frame, everything seems consistent. It's, it's kind of like the Doppler effect. You hear something change in pitch only when it's moving away from you. So the speed of light works in sort of a similar way, I think, in that you only have motion, you only have a consistent speed of light when there is a reference frame that is not accelerating. What I mean by this is, when you're in an ambulance, you hear the pitch of the siren going off, and to you, it's the same thing. It's unchanging, except for, the variation of pitch that is intended. But for someone who's standing still, someone who's not in the same reference frame as you, the pitch seems to be getting higher or lower, based on where they are in reference to the ambulance. Something similar happens with light when you move closer or farther away from objects. If you can imagine the light hitting your eye, if you're moving farther away, then it's going to take a little bit longer for that to happen. If you're moving closer, it's going to take less time. You're essentially adding or subtracting your own speed from the speed of light that's coming off whatever object you're looking at. So what would happen if you were moving nearly the speed of light away from Earth? If you did this for a few days and you looked back at Earth through a telescope, you would only see that a few seconds had passed, depending on how close to the speed of light you were, but it wouldn't be nearly as much time as you had actually been traveling away. So, when you go back to Earth, the opposite effect happens. If you were looking at Earth at the same time that you were traveling towards it, things would seem to be moving very quickly because you are going directly into the speed of light. But I don't think that you actually travel time when you do this. You just, you give the appearance that you do once you're way out in space and hardly any time has passed. But when you return to Earth, the objects are still as they are. I mean, you don't want to confuse being able to see things and light as objects as they are, because as we know, a sun or a star might blow up, and then it would take us years for us to actually know that, because the object giving off the light is no longer there, but its light is still, because there's so much distance in between us, the light is still coming and hitting our telescope.
The Chinese or the Russians or anyone else's technology. This isn't a hoax. There's too much data to suggest that it's a hoax. We've got too much radar imagery. There's too much satellite data.
We tracked 3 unidentified objects, one in Alaska, Canada, and over Lake Huron. I gave the order to take down these 3 objects. We don't yet know exactly what these 3 objects were.
Bombshell Daily Mail article came out this week saying a secret office of the CIA has collected at least 9 non-human spacecraft from all over the world over the last 20 years. Of those 9 spacecraft, 1 had crashed with considerable damage. The 2 others were completely intact. The retrieval mission was allegedly performed by the military.
I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all?
The first thing you see in this picture. If you see the upside-down mouse in the picture, then you are a very meticulous observer. The rabbit represents caution, sensitivity, and attention to detail. Those who first see the rabbit usually pay great attention to details in life and can notice things that others overlook. This suggests that you are likely a compassionate, good listener, and deep thinker. However, make sure that your sensitivity doesn't cause you to overly fret about trivial matters or become too introverted. If you first see the lion, it means you are an extremely independent individual, as the lion always likes to be in control of its domain, which aligns with your personality. Not only do you possess a resilient spirit, but you also constantly seek your true self. You enjoy soaring freely in your own world, exploring your own interests and objectives, unbounded by anything. However, this independence might sometimes be misunderstood. Occasionally, people may perceive you as aloof or distant, thinking that you always live in your own little world. But in reality, that's not your true intention. You just value those precious moments spent alone and prioritize inner peace and balance. In your world, independence does not equate to loneliness, but rather a choice and autonomy.
That's creepy. Good people of Earth. What did you see first? Myself, at first, I had seen a fish, but you see, I was surprised there was a lion there. Anyway, look at this UFO in Saudi Arabia. This is creepy. Oh my God. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, you guys have seen UFO. If you're watching and you're from Saudi Arabia or near those places where they have seen UFOs, please leave some comment, man. This is creepy. How do these things work, man? Can you see? Do they have windows? Can you... What? Did you just see what it did? Oh, that's very abnormal. Or is that what makes it... What? Oh my God. It's like there was some person there that was left on ground and was absorbed by something. Oh, this is crazy. Look at this. This is how juggling looks from above. Oh, this is interesting, man. You guys, do you know how to juggle? Is this true, or this guy is just doing something on the ground? Oh, I think this guy is doing something on the ground. Is this really out there, or... Please, wait,
so when I was there the last time, I took people on a private visit into a sealed door. We couldn't get in the door because the director of the site forgot that we were coming that day. So he called our guide and gave the approval for us to smash the lock. So we smashed the lock. He said, as long as you buy another one. So I said, we'll buy another one. We went into the room, the biggest box you've ever seen, 3 times bigger than any box in the regular Serapeum. And it's got a radioactive sticker on it, letting you know it's radioactive. So all these things, the function is energy. These things are transmitting a specific type of energy, radioactive energy, but also some type of other exotic energy, I believe, is combined. And there's one other thing to this. They're all mostly crystal. 50%, 40 to 60% is crystal. Now, crystals are sentient living beings in my personal research. They can replicate, they can communicate, they can send and receive information. They're alive. They can grow on their own. They can duplicate. So I believe that another thing that they did was they used stone that had crystal because in their perception, they were creating living machines. Okay, so the statues, they were alive. These vases, they're alive. Those boxes, they're all alive because they're loaded with so many tons of crystal.
What is it? Is it quartz crystal? Or
quartz crystal.
Quartz?
Yeah.
What do you think the purpose of those boxes were?
Oh, halls of Amenti. So if you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, my first book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, I break it all the way down.
Okay. He
had these boxes in these underground halls that were discovered underneath the Great Pyramid, exactly where he says they were in his tablets. And in these halls, and it was just one of the locations. They had them all over the earth. They would actually create their own bodies. So we fashioned our own bodies. So they would either take a stem cell and turn it into a clone of themselves. But they didn't take other bodies. They said they made their own. And then they would put a body in a rejuvenation chamber, which is the box. And then they would transfer their consciousness from the body that's been used up into the newer body. And they said we would walk amongst men, but unlike a man. And so they would be here walking around, and you wouldn't even know that they just been transferring their mind from body to body. And each one of those boxes had bodies in them, and the body would sit there for 100 years, and they would walk amongst men in the body for 100. And Thoth says he did it 100 times 10. So if you take 100 times 10 plus the 100 years of each body sitting in the box, you're talking 100,000 years potentially. So you're talking about beings that achieve the level of immortality, not because of their gods, but because of they had advanced technology that allowed them to transfer their consciousness into another body.